Hi, and welcome to IEP Answers. I'm Liz Weaver of Learning Success, and I'm your host for this exciting video series. IEP Answers is an initiative to help you understand individualized education plans, otherwise known as IEPs. In this video series, you will hear from educational professionals and parents alike, giving you a well-rounded perspective from a variety of viewpoints. This information will help you determine if an IEP is needed at all, and if so, how to work with the school to design an IEP that is a scaffolding to building a better student rather than a crutch for them to lean on. In today's video, we have Tara Emrick. Tara grew up in Colorado with her two brothers. She met her husband at Occidental College, where she was a women's studies major. She received her master's in social work at SJSU after working in several nonprofits supporting youth. Tara began teaching yoga for grief after losing her younger brother in 2006. She is currently working to address the impact of trauma and grief on middle and high school students by implementing healing somatic practices. This new venture is called the Hip Me Project. Tara lives with her husband and 3 children in Denver. She is the author of 13 Reasons Why You Belong, an honoring of adolescence, available for purchase on Amazon. She speaks to young people, parents, and educators about empowering our teens to embody themselves. If you would like Tara to speak to your group, please contact her at info@hipmepublishing.com. www.hipmeproject.org is where you can find her. And today her video is going to be showing us some tips on experience with IEPs and her 2 daughters.
Hi, I have 2 daughters. One is a 6th grader, one is a 9th grader. My 6th grader has had an IEP in place since 2nd grade. My 9th grader, we are currently getting an IEP in place for her, but she had a 504 in place in 2nd grade also. My oldest daughter started out in public school for kindergarten, and we knew going in that she was going to need extra support. She came to us through the foster care system and had a lot of early childhood trauma, which has a big impact on brain development, and which can have a big impact on brain development. And it was clear early on, because of her lack of language and vocabulary due to not being spoken to, that she needed extra support. So we were very fortunate to land with an amazing kindergarten teacher, and that kindergarten teacher was able to assess her needs and meet her needs. And because of that, we didn't really feel like we needed to seek out any more interventions. 1st grade was a different story. We had a lot of struggle in 1st grade. We made the decision to transfer to another public school. We landed with an amazing 2nd grade teacher who was a former special education teacher, and she's really the one that pushed us towards getting something more permanent in place. So I was aware of IEPs and 504s before that, because I am a social worker by training, and I was a school social worker for a year in a public middle school, and was part of some of the team decision-making meetings and coming together with students who were getting IEPs. So I had some awareness, but I really didn't truly understand all that went into it until I became a parent of 2 children who needed extra support in school. So because of the amazing 2nd grade teacher that we had, we started out with a 504. That's what we were encouraged to do. So I just went along with sort of what was suggested to us. In order for my daughter to qualify for a 504, she had to be officially diagnosed with something, which that in and of itself, I think I have different feelings about that. But I also feel like there is a time and a place where you have to sort of play within the rules of the system. So her pediatrician diagnosed her as ADD, which was not a made-up diagnosis. She certainly displayed various behavior types that go along with attention deficit disorder. I actually really believe that she was suffering more from PTSD and not ADD, and it just manifested in similar behavior. Nevertheless, we went with the ADD diagnosis because we knew that it would get us a 504. So it took about a year to get the 504 in place. and she didn't really get much outside intervention that second grade year, with the exception of some reading intervention. Her third grade year was a very different experience. In some ways, I think because her third grade teacher was not as tuned in, she was a first year teacher. I also was still learning the ins and outs of navigating that system. So it was a learning year, I think, for all of us. Long story short, we ended up transferring again to a private school that was a much smaller, more racially diverse and inclusive school setting for my daughter, which felt like a much better fit for our family. So we did not go for an IEP with her because she entered a private school setting and there were only 13 children in the classroom with her. So she got all the extra support she needed through the intervention team at her school. Now, again, she's in 9th grade. We're back in a public school setting. We are seeking out an IEP for her. The reason we're seeking out an IEP for her, and the reason you might want to seek one out for your child, is because I know she's going to need extra accommodations when it comes to test taking. And I want those things in place in a legally binding document, which is what an IEP is. So I am making sure that she gets an IEP for her high school career. With my middle daughter, who is currently a 6th grader, we started the process of knowing that she too needed some intervention early on in kindergarten. We did not get an IEP in place with her until 2nd grade. I wouldn't even consider a 504 for her because I knew, and this is an important differentiation, I think, with a 504, your child will get intervention. They will receive extra support, but they cannot receive support like occupational therapy or speech therapy. My middle daughter has needed occupational therapy. She struggles with dyspraxia. So the occupational therapy piece has been imperative for her. So I pushed for an IEP from the beginning because I wanted her to have access to those outside resources and that outside support. It has been my experience in general that school systems, again, in general, don't really promote or push IEPs. I think the reason is because they are legally binding documents. I think schools have limited resources, limited time. I mean, there's a much bigger question and conversation to be had about public education and how we're going about doing it and how we're funding it. But without going off on that tangent, I think because schools are stretched so thin, they don't jump right into an IEP. So if you feel like your child is struggling, you know if your child is struggling. And I think the first step is to not doubt yourself, but also to educate yourself and know that there is a difference between an IEP and a 504. Know that a school will have to evaluate your child in order to create an IEP for them. The first thing to do is to ask for your child's teacher, to have a conversation, a sit-down meeting with them. And I think it's important to sit down in person, let them know your concerns, find out their concerns, start that ball rolling. And then once you get that ball rolling, the school then has 60 days to evaluate your child. We didn't necessarily know that we could push hard for that evaluation, so we actually sought out outside evaluations for both of our daughters. They were both evaluated by a educational psychologist. We had to pay out of pocket for that. It was incredibly expensive. We are lucky and fortunate and privileged enough to have the means to do that. I realize that obviously not every family is able to do that, which is frustrating to me that is something that is a truth. So know that you don't have to have outside testing in order for your child to get evaluations, or to be evaluated rather. My middle daughter's school did the same exact tests that we had already received to her, or that she'd already been tested on, but they needed to have it within the system. So in some ways, I guess the outside educational testing was helpful because it just gave us better ideas as to how they were learning and what was going on with them. But again, I think you as the parent are the advocate for your child. Being an advocate is imperative. Don't take no for an answer. I also think, though, it's really, really important to recognize that in general, I think our teachers and educators are very well-meaning. They have great intention. They are doing an incredibly challenging and difficult job that I cannot imagine doing, and to have great respect and gratitude for them is imperative. I stepped into every meeting with that sense of respect and gratitude for my child's teacher, and at the same time was strong in my voice and my opinion. And I feel like it's important to navigate the system as a team. You want your child's teacher on your team. You need to be an important team member. You want your child to be a team member. So I think that coming into the whole situation, seeing your child's teacher as an ally is really important. Obviously, there might be circumstances or situations where that's not the case, and then you need to go outside. So coming in with that attitude of gratitude, so to speak, I think is imperative, but strong. Stay true to what you know to be true about your child. Don't take no for an answer. It's a long and arduous process. I think if I had to do it all over again, I would have pushed a little harder a little bit sooner with my middle daughter to get her on an IEP. I understand that there's things in place and they want to get to know the kids and they want to sort of make sure that that's really what they need. But if you step back and just kind of let them figure it out, it might not happen. So be vocal, be strong, be present, be in direct communication with your child's teacher and your child's school. Be appreciative. It's really important to not burn bridges, even though anger is valid. It can be a really frustrating experience. Looping your child in a way that hopefully makes them feel like they're just like everybody else. They just need a little extra support because there are still stigmas attached to having an IEP. But getting an IEP in place, and then once the IEP is in place, your job is not done. It's important to follow up and follow through. Every year I make sure all my teachers, or my children's teachers rather, know what interventions are in place and know how to best address and teach my child. Thank you.
Thanks, Tara. Sharing your experience has been really helpful. This video has been part of the IEP Answers initiative, an initiative to educate parents about IEPs from a variety of viewpoints. We've created this because it's important to understand this subject. So many people need this help. Please make sure to share this video and use the hashtag IEP Answers so we can find you on social media. If you would like to be a part of IEP Answers initiative and share your story or your expertise on the subject, you can get in touch with us by using our contact form at www.learningsuccesssystem.com and put IEP Answers in the subject line. Thank you again for taking the time to watch and taking the time to share. In case no one else has told you today, you are an amazing parent. I appreciate you for showing up and doing the work it takes to embrace your child's brilliance and help unleash their potential. I'm Liz Weaver from Learning Success, and I'll see you in tomorrow's video.